What's going on, guys? Welcome back to shop. I have just seen dozens and dozens of stories coming out of the Ukraine, and it made me, I had this epiphany moment where I suddenly realized that I was like, wait a minute, is this the new thing to take our eyes off of the failure that all of the Rona policies brought on? The failures of Fauci, the failures of the Wuhan lab, all of these places that are involved, because I'm hearing smatterings of all this news coming out that basically there was a study out of Iceland where they proved that the V's actually didn't do anything to slow the spread or stop anything, or the shutdowns and lockdowns. So they have completely opened up. They're going to a pre-pandemic state as far as the way their condition was before the pandemic. They're going back to that because all of the restrictions have actually hurt the efforts to stop and slow the spread. So very interesting stuff. And I think this Ukrainian situation with, talks of World War III and stuff like that on the horizon, and possibly nuclear war, I think that's the perfect distraction from all of the failures of the Biden administration. And I think that's why they're doing this and pushing so hard to get us involved in this. And you might say this is all 100% Putin, but it's really not. If you know a little bit about recent world history, when the Bidens came in, he sent his people, his ambassadors over, and people in the UN went over and tried to court Ukraine to becoming a NATO member. That's what they wanted. They wanted Ukraine to join NATO. And years ago, there was an agreement that was made between Mikhail Gorbachev and somebody else in the United States, some other, Secretary of State or something like that. I don't remember what their position was, but they had a high position of power in the United States, and they made an agreement with Mikhail Gorbachev that NATO would not expand 1 inch towards Russia. And yet, here we are. All of the ex-Soviet satellite countries, except for Ukraine, have been snapped up by NATO over the years. And of course, Russia sees that as a threat. It would be the equivalent of Mexico joining the old Warsaw Pact or something like that. The United States wouldn't put up with that sort of stuff, nor would Russia, nor would any other superpower when some other outside organization is coming in and flexing right near their border. So, am I on Putin's side in this thing? No, I'm not. But I understand where they're coming from. Putin specifically asked NATO not to expand into Ukraine. And that would be, make Ukraine like a neutral buffer zone between Russia's border and NATO's forces. And the U.S. and NATO told Russia and Putin to go pound sand. And that's what this is about. They're conveniently leaving that part of the story out of all of their reportings. I'm not hearing anyone, especially in mainstream media, giving any background on any of this stuff and looking at things from a different perspective. Why would Putin be doing this? Well, it's because he's tried to have this neutral zone in Ukraine and keep them neutral. So he says. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he would have done this either way, even if they were neutral. We'll never know, because the United States and NATO have been pressuring Zelensky and his administration to join NATO since Biden took office. So remember, under Donald Trump, there were a lot of talks about defunding NATO and getting us out of NATO and stuff like that. Well, that shook up the apple cart big time. The people in NATO didn't like that, not one bit. And of course, now that they got their guy that's 100% pro-expansion, pro-NATO, they're going to try to take everything they can. So I saw a couple of maps on a Daily Mail news story today, and I want to share a couple of these with you because it really helps us Westerners just to get a grasp on what they're talking about, what the layout is like as far as the cities in Ukraine. There's lots of stuff, lots of bodies piling up, lots of buildings being turned into rubble over there in the Ukraine right now. But I wanted you to see these maps. This one here, it's showing some different airplanes kind of surrounding Kiev. Of course, Kiev is the capital of the Ukraine, and this is kind of a zoomed in image here, but it's kind of showing you what Russia and Putin's plan is. They're going to try to surround Kiev and force the government of Ukraine to surrender. I think that's probably the plan, and it looks like that's what's actually happening right now. Russia and Russian forces have taken quite a big chunk around Kiev. So I would argue they're pretty deeply entrenched by now in these fighting positions around Kiev. So this is not going to end well, I don't believe, for a lot of the people around Kiev that live in that area, live in that city, or in the suburbs around there, you're in the danger zone right now. So it looks as if that's the plan. And we'll look at this next map here. This one shows all of Ukraine and kind of some of the strongholds that Russia actually had. If you look real closely, there are a couple of areas like Crimea and Donbass, however you pronounce that. There were already Russian troops that have been in there for like the past 6 years. So this is nothing new. But now, of course, it's turned into, a hot war, and people are, bullets are flying, bombs are dropping, planes are, I heard of a story of one of the Russians' planes got shot out of the sky. I don't know. The Russians, of course, are saying it was a technical malfunction or a pilot error. It had nothing to do with being shot at. But of course, that's what you would say, right? So more than likely, the Ukrainian people or their military shot down a Russian plane. I've seen several pictures of, damaged Russian equipment and stuff like that. But of course, we've got to remember we're getting a one-sided perspective on this from this story. Of course, the Daily Mail comes out of the UK. The UK is pro-NATO, so they're going to take a very pro-NATO stance. So that's the problem with the news today, is it's always biased. There's no unbiased news left anymore, at least that I've found. I haven't found anyone that actually does unbiased news. I don't believe it exists anymore. Everything has a bias to it. And so if you go over and you watch RT or some of the other Russian perspectives, then they're going to tell you a completely different story. But I thought this map was very interesting and wanted to show this to you guys because, and maybe, if any of you guys know anything about this, maybe you've spent some time over in Ukraine, come in and tell us about the topography and different areas like that. That might be challenging for Russia or for Ukraine to hold. So there were a lot of pictures of the Ukrainian soldiers on bridges and stuff, and the Ukrainians have a lot of Kalashnikovs and a lot of NATO provided military gear. I can't remember what they call that rocket launcher. That's kind of like a bazooka. I'll have to try to find images of that. But Biden has sent over tons and tons of these. I want to call them JRAD or JROD or something like that. I don't remember what they're called, but they're basically the modern version of a bazooka. And we've sent over bunches of those, and supposedly they're taking out tanks, Russian tanks, with these. I can't remember what those things are called now. It's going to eat me up. I'll think of it, after I turn the video off. That's how that works. But anyways, lots of stuff is going down over in Ukraine. And I do feel bad for the innocent people there, the innocent bystanders that will definitely end up, a lot of them being casualties of war. You just can't be in a war zone and not expect some people, to die. So Russia claims they're only attacking government and military buildings, but I've seen some footage and some videos that looks like apartment complexes and things like that have been attacked. Now, we have to watch out because that could have easily been a false flag. It could be that Ukrainian people are trying to get NATO to support them, and they want to make it look like it's taken out civilian targets. So, in the fog of war, it's hard to tell what's right and what's wrong and what's truth and what's lies. And so, guys, any of this stuff you consume, just be sure, even from my channel, go check it out yourself. Go look it up yourself. I am not a world politics kind of guy. I mostly focus on the U.S. Constitution and stay in my own turf. The only reason I'm talking about this stuff is I believe this is phase 2 or 3 of the Great Reset. I think this is all part of the plan. They wanted this to happen. They wanted Russia to come in and be the aggressor. For one thing, it gives the United States and NATO a brand new enemy that everyone can label Hitler. And that's what they're doing. They're comparing Vladimir Putin to Hitler. And again, I've said it over and over and over. I am not some big Putin fanboy. I think he's probably a bad guy. But then again, I have to wonder, with all the lies that I've seen and proven to be lies coming out of the mouths of our mainstream media and our State Department, I have to kind of wonder, and our intelligence agencies, I have to wonder, is that true? Is this stuff true that they've been telling us for decades about Russia and Putin and stuff like that? It just kind of makes you wonder. It's kind of like that scene in The Matrix when they're sitting there eating the mush at the Neo has been brought out of the Matrix and he's living in the real world now, and he's realizing the real world freaking sucks. It's nothing like the Matrix. The Matrix was nice. You could go eat a steak, whatever. And they're sitting around the table eating this slop. and one of the guys says, what is this stuff? And they start talking about it, and the younger guy, the mousy guy, I can't remember his name, but he goes, yeah, it really makes you wonder, what does anything taste like? Does it taste like what you think it tastes like, or does it taste like what the Matrix says it's supposed to taste like? It's just, that's the moment that I'm in right now, personally, myself. I don't know what to believe anymore as far as what is truth anymore. Truth is getting very, very hard to find, especially in this clickbait, more clicks means more popular world we live in now, where that's really when news went off the charts, was back then when everything became about, getting the most clicks, getting the most thumbs ups, whatever, that sort of thing. Mainstream media shouldn't be doing that sort of stuff, creating headlines that are sensational, that oftentimes are over the top compared to what the actual story is. And we've got this world where, everybody's going so fast, moving so fast, trying to keep up, and we're all on our smartphones, or most people are on their smartphones all the time. So they read the headlines. They don't bother to go and read in depth what the story actually says. That is how we have become so misinformed as a nation. And a misinformed people can't be united, because there's so many different arguments and so many different rabbit holes that you could go down. So that's one of the things I'm trying to do here, is sort through the lies and the corruption and the misinformation and disinformation, not coming from people that I know or people around me or people on the right wing like the Biden administration says. No, coming from the very top of the food chain here in our country, all the way down. The alphabet agencies that not only spy on us, but they don't even present the news, they create the news. And that's a scary thing. So guys, just be really careful in what you believe and what you don't believe. One thing I wanted to kind of touch on real quickly here on the way out was, and this was really concerning to me, because there are things that can happen. There are weapons that nations can use that aren't nuclear, but they're damn near nuclear. And these things are scary, and I wanted to talk to you guys about this a little bit. If you remember from Operation, what did they call it? Iraqi Freedom, or whatever it was, under George Bush, we detonated a bomb that was called the mother of all bombs. It's a massive ordnance air blast bomb. So this thing doesn't hit the ground and that makes it go off like the older bombs. This thing detonates up in the air, in the atmosphere, at a certain height, so that it has maximum yield, maximum destruction. So the United States bombs, they weigh 21,600 pounds. The blast yield is 11 tons of TNT. That's massive. Destruction radius is 150 to 300 meters. They've got these little tail fins that they can flip around and stuff, and I'll put the picture up so you guys can see this. The thing is, I didn't realize this, but both of these technologies, the U.S. and the Russians, it's thermobaric bombs is what they call it. It basically is like a vacuum bomb, and they created these things back in the 60s. So the Russians have one called father of all bombs, and it's a thermobaric bomb of increased power. So they refer to it as a vacuum bomb because it combines oxygen in the atmosphere to significantly expand the blast radius. This one weighs 15,600 pounds. So it's actually lighter than the U.S. version. I find that interesting. Its blast yield, though, is 44 tons of TNT. So remember, our mother of all bombs was 11 tons of TNT, which is a pretty substantial blast yield. But 44 tons takes it to above 300 meters. And the cost is unknown. We don't know a lot about that stuff. But they test fired the Russian bomb back in 2007. And the temperatures that were produced by the blast were twice as high as that of the U.S. version, making it more deadly. And it works by detonating in midair. And they're showing here a picture down at the bottom. It says it goes 600 meters wide. So I would say it's probably 300 to 600 meter blast radius. So double what the mother of all bombs does. And if you remember, you can go watch videos on YouTube of them detonating that over in Afghanistan or Iraq, I believe. I can't remember which, but it's scary stuff, guys. They have things that are just below nuclear level that hope to God we don't ever see them deploying this kind of stuff. So one of the other things that was really shocking to me is that Russia is moving around some of their largest ICBM missiles, the ones that are mobile. and basically have a vehicle built underneath them. Now, Russia is saying they're only doing this because they're doing a military parade, but I'm calling BS on that one. I think they're probably getting them in place just in case they have to, deploy, maybe from a offensive or defensive perspective. So Russia probably is aware that they've pissed off every NATO country, and they've pissed off the West by doing this. But what's interesting is NATO and the West is not aware that they actually started this whole thing by expanding NATO into Ukraine. So again, guys, if we want to sit around and point blame at people, we need to look back at our own policies of meddling in foreign countries. This never ends well. I mean, I can give you example after example of how the United States has gone in and supported these coups and then turned their backs on the very people they claimed that they were going to support and help. This is exactly what we're seeing in Ukraine. Biden promised that he wouldn't allow this to happen to the Ukraine, and yet here we are. And what is Biden doing? He's doing these sanctions that are meaningless, and now he's going off to hide in Delaware. This is all being done by design. Oh my God, one more bombshell story I almost forgot to tell you guys about. If you don't know about this, please go look it up yourself. Don't take my word for it. Biden is pulling Border Patrol troops off of the southern border to send to the Ukraine. You're telling me this guy isn't hell-bent on the destruction of the United States of America? After looking at what he does and the moves that he makes? I mean, my God. We're in such trouble, guys. I don't even know how to address it in a lot of these videos. This thing, it may seem robust and strong that we're living in the economy and our system and everything like that, but I'm telling you, we have never been closer to the razor's edge than we are right now as a country. Everything around us, all of this freedom and luxury that we've lived through and we've been blessed with for all of my lifetime, all of that could be gone in an instant. We could end up being the ones that are the third world country if we don't play our cards right. And of course, we got this guy in there that's doing everything he can to destroy our country, cutting off our own oil supply. He's sanctioning Russia, meanwhile begging Putin to give them more oil because he doesn't want his gas prices to go too high on his watch. Get ready, guys. $5 a gallon is just the start. I think we're going to see $10 a gallon gasoline. And if gasoline hits $10 a gallon like I think it might in the next couple of years, don't be surprised when you have to pay, I don't know, $5 to $7, $8 for a loaf of bread. And the sky's the limit on that stuff. When the Weimar Republic started going, when Zimbabwe and all these other countries that started printing money into oblivion started going, it went quickly. It's kind of like that old saying, it happens very slowly, like bankruptcy. It happens very slowly and then all at once. It's the same sort of deal with the overprinting of money and irresponsible policies in general. So guys, hopefully I've given you something to think about. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but here's the deal. You should be preparing for the United States to be involved in World War III, because I think that's what we're on the cusp of. I hope it doesn't spiral out of control and get us all involved in that sort of deal. But it very easily could. Very easily could. And we've got this feckless leader up there that he really is no leader. He should probably be hanging out, spending his last days in a retirement home somewhere. But instead, he's been appointed Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. I don't know, guys. I think in the end, this is what interventionalism gets you. And I'm a non-interventionalist. I think the United States should be, I'm not saying I'm an isolationist, but I'm a non-interventionalist. We shouldn't be poking the bear or anything around them. But I'm not in charge, and you aren't either. Mr. Magoo's in charge right now. So hang on, guys. I think it's going to be a bumpy ride. Please stock up. Get gasoline while you can, because and figure out ways to store that long term, because may not be able to afford it real soon in Biden's America. Appreciate you guys stopping by for a chat. Hit me up in the comments if you want to continue this conversation. I always love reading them. As always, I stand for liberty. I hope you do too.